Let me introduce our next speaker, Professor Kent Drummond. Kent started life as an English major at Stanford, and later he went on to Northwestern University for a master's in business administration. You would think he would then go on and make a lot of money and not think about academics at all. But after experiencing the give and take of the commercial world, he went back to Stanford for a PhD in communications and arrived at UW in the 1990s to teach in that field. Professor Drummond quickly became known as a good teacher, and his popularity increased. He soon had to limit his course size to UW's largest lecture halls. He also taught small seminars, but whichever size he taught, he seemed to be winning teaching awards. He won UW's Best Award, the Elbogen. It's best well known. And he's also won the Golden Apple for freshman teaching, a very hard one to win because it's hard to teach freshmen well. They want to act not like college kids, but like high school kids. So it's adjustment for a faculty member. And those are just the two most famous ones. He's got a wall full of them. Kent's research is much like his educational training. It shows his interdisciplinary approach and has taken him in many directions. But in the end, he's always seems to be chasing the same question. What enables a work of art to become not just popular, but iconic? To be not just influential for a cultural moment, but to last for decades or perhaps even centuries. Dr. Drummond has studied the works of the Italian Renaissance painter Caravaggio. He's studied ballet. And of course, he's analyzed more recent artists, like the Beatles. You know what, it never ceases to amaze me. When I grew up listening to the Beatles, it was protest. It was resistance activity. You know, I did it to make my parents angry. Today, I find that my students have the same passion about the Beatles, but it's a passion they share with their parents. Which, anyway. Today, Kent's going to bring his interdisciplinary perspective to The Wizard of Oz, and I will let him tell his story. Professor Drummond.
Thank you for being here this evening. It's such a privilege and an honor to be here. And what a beautiful space. The library itself, great. And so gratifying to see young people reading. You don't see that too often. But they were here when I got here early. As Paul said, is that too loud? Is that okay? It's good. Okay. Yeah, I like to ask these questions when I'm in a place where I've seen something before or something's really old. And I say, well, all right, how did it get here? And why is it still here? And why is this other version of it now taking hold? Okay? Have you ever had that feeling? I was in a performance of Wicked, this musical. How many people have seen Wicked? Yeah? A few. What? Come on, what are you guys doing? We got to get out more. No. Yeah, and I remember being so moved by some of the songs. Were you? Yeah, they're very powerful, very emotional. And I realized that people around me were feeling the same way because I heard the sniffles. Yeah. They try to hide it at the end. Have you ever had that feeling? An arts event where you're so moved that you're just overcome, right? Yeah, It does happen that way. We're a little embarrassed, but then we know other people are feeling the same way. And those moments are what I fashion onto. Those are things that mean a lot to me. Well, Wicked is one of those moments, and we unpacked that. And what we came up with was a book, and it's called The Road to Wicked. And what it is kind of an explanation of how The Wizard of Oz and that collection of stories that started in 1900 evolved and are still very much with us today. And I'll get into that in a minute. But I want to backtrack a little bit. When I drove into Pinedale, I saw a sign that said, "All the civilization you need." Is that right? Yeah. Because you know what I need? I need a ballet company, okay? Have we got one here? Pinedale? Ballet company, really? Come on. We what? Okay, you've got dancing school. That's the start. You got to have the school before you have the dance company. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I thought maybe after the lecture we could all see a performance of Swan Lake. Yeah, that would be fun, wouldn't it? But no, we don't have a dance company here. What do you need to have a dance company? You got to have people to go see the dance company, right? So that's the start. We don't have enough people here. But even if we did have enough people, what else would we need?
$60 million.
You do need a lot of money for a dance company, right? A company big enough, say, to put on Swan Lake. Okay, well, if we did, then we'd still need all that stuff that goes into the dance company, right? We need the dancers, we need the orchestra, we need the production crew, all that stuff. And then we'd go to that and we'd have the experience of Swan Lake, which is a very powerful experience. Has anyone seen it? Yeah? Do you like it? Have you danced in it? Yeah. No? All right. Well, if we went there and if we experienced Swan Lake, that might be what it's like. Classic Swan Lake, because it's a classic ballet, right? And there she is, Odette, the queen of the swans. And then her posse's in back, you know. And I don't know, what's their style of dancing? What's their personality? It's very demure, it's very contained, it's very graceful, it's very shy. So the Prince Siegfried comes along and discovers them, and they're taken aback. And of course, the prince and the queen immediately fall in love, and they dance together. And these dancers act like swans, right? And at the end of this scene, he swears his undying love to her. So they're going to be united forever. Until about 5 minutes later, in the next act, where her counterpart shows up in the court dressed in black and very provocative and very enticing. And she dances with him. And that pledge of undying love that he swore to her just minutes before, it goes out the window. And suddenly, he falls for her. Now, it turns out they're the same person, right? They're two sides of the same. And the roles are danced by the same person. All right. So all sorts of weird cultural twists and terms are present in this narrative of Swan Lake. And we recognize these things and we see it. And this thing's been in existence for over 120 years. So it's a classic, and somehow it defines ballet. So there it is, it's been there, and maybe we have this dance company now, and we've been going to see Swan Lake, once every year. And that's great. But would you ever get tired of seeing the same thing over and over? You would, wouldn't you? Absolutely. Yeah, you do. So the challenge that a lot of producers face in any kind of arts organization is how to make it new, how to make it different, how to change up Swan Lake. Now that's a real challenge because it's been that way for 120 years. And when we go to the ballet, we kind of expect to see it that way. And yet, there are people out there who dream up things and ways to make it new and to keep it going. And so there's classic Swan Lake, and then there's this. All right? Yeah, whoops. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Oops. That one. So that's the all-male version of Swan Lake. Okay? That's now 20 years old. So when classic Swan Lake got to be 100, a choreographer named Matthew Matthew Byrne, came along and said, it's time to reimagine Swan Lake. So it's his bevy of swans. All right? Well, they're all men. And since they're professional dancers, they're kind of buff, aren't they? Yeah. They're in great shape. They're very athletic. And the way he makes them move is very different from the regular swans, right? They're very athletic. They're very violent. They're not in a very good mood. They don't like people. So if you come near them, they're going to kick you, maybe bite you. They're violent. And yet the narrative is somewhat the same. And that's a weird thing. So there's this prince, although then this overlay, like he's not set in this fairy tale time, but kind of contemporary time. In fact, he grows up in a palace that looks kind of like Buckingham Palace. And he's mothered by this very domineering mother who's also kind of distant. And she has these corgis around. I don't know. Coincidence? I don't think so. So it's kind of a commentary on the one hand. And at the same time, this prince is despondent. He's depressed. He wanders out by the lake at St. James's Palace, which is the home of Prince Charles, but that's just a coincidence. And he sees these swans, and he's kind of fascinated by them. And so the head swan dances with him. And even though this kid is depressed and kind of alienated from people, the swan, when he's with him, is very gentle and very nurturing and shows him a kind of power. So in the old version, when the prince was displaying the ballerina, which you do in classical ballet, this swan is kind of showing this prince how to move and how to be and how to be powerful, you know. And that's very satisfying for him. Now what happens in that second act is that the prince is back in the court and it's time to probably choose a wife. And so all these eligible women are around and he's vaguely interested. And then suddenly this guy shows up in a leather jacket and some bling. And he's absolutely magnetic. And it is that guy in human form. So it's the other side of that coin. And he flirts with everyone in sight. He, kind of seduces people and pushes them away. He's a very dangerous character. And he kind of does the same thing to the prince. So all sorts of overlays of new ways of telling a story. Shocking in a way, which it was certainly when it premiered, and making us see an old story in a very new and unexpected way. Now, 20 years old, what do you think happened to that ballet when it first premiered? Premiered in London because it's a very English story, came to New York, then to LA. How do you think it did? Okay, terribly, poorly, possibly, bombed. You might think, but here's what happened. It sold out. It was a huge success, both critically and commercially. And you wouldn't expect that, right? Because you think, this is crazy. Now, partly, I'm describing it. If you saw it, you'd see how magnetic it is. But, it shocked people. But people came to see it. They said, what is this thing about? Now, that's an example of making it new, all right? So, 20 years old, still being performed. There's a video version of it, and it's definitely worth seeing. All right. I've got another example. There he is. So, classic Beethoven. I don't know, what do we think of when we think of Beethoven? Yeah, definitely the symphony. So another art form, a high art form, the symphony. Have you been to the symphony lately? I was looking for a symphony here in Pinedale. I didn't see one. That's okay. And again, we need a lot of resources to have a symphony. And if we did, maybe they'd play Beethoven. And Beethoven is considered one of those major blockbuster artists that always draws a crowd. What do you think of when you think of Beethoven? Either his music or the person, the life? What kind of person was he? Pleasant, the kind of person you'd like to get to know? Probably not. Difficult to get to know? Yeah. Not a pleasant person. Caught up in his music, writing it. But the music itself, very accessible, right? So Beethoven's Fifth, the Ninth, all those things. Classic. Things we can count on. Things that if you're an arts organization, you can make money from, right? So we count on people like Beethoven. But here's the thing about the symphony. What's happening to symphonies these days? Symphonies all over the world. What's going on? They're flourishing? More people than ever? Actually, no. Right. They're hurting. They're dying. Not many people are going to the symphony. Yeah. It's an aging population, people who do go. And not as many people are as interested as they used to be. Now, there are a lot of theories about that. Why do you think that is? Why aren't people going to the symphony like they used to? Other forms of entertainment, competing. Yeah, absolutely. What he said was we have electronics that produce that sound at least as good as a live version, right? Yeah. So there's technology coming in to make it maybe not necessary to go to the concert hall if we can just stay at home or exercise on the bike and listen to the music. So things change a lot when you introduce that technology. And the symphonies are hurting. So you can bet that the boards of these symphonies are trying like mad to come up with new ideas to get people back to the symphony. So, what can you do? How can you somehow change the experience to make it more desirable? All right. We're keeping the story going. Now we got Beethoven and Bruce. All right? So, you can hear the symphony, but you can drink some beer while you're listening. It's not in the hall, it's at Red Rocks. Now, this is a real thing. It's the Colorado Symphony. Okay? They're pushing that this summer. You can go. You can drink some beer, you can listen to the Fifth. You could drink a Fifth for that matter. And really enjoy yourself. So what we're trying to do with all of these artistic experiences, somehow twist them, make them somehow different in a way that you still get the experience, but it's new, and we're going to get you back in the door. And hopefully telling your friend. So you'll notice I keep using this word experience. And one of the big trends in marketing these days is what we call experiential marketing, that we are giving people a total experience. And you hear this in advertising all the time. We're giving you an experience. And what we mean by it is you're multisensory usually, that you're listening to something, but you might be tasting something. You're certainly seeing something. You're immersed in some kind of environment where you're cut off from everything else and you're just all enveloping. So it's kind of like what Paul was talking about with the Beatles. We used to listen to the Beatles that way, just in our room. Now you go to Vegas and you see Love. You see Love? What an amazing experience, so powerful. It's truly immersive because you're sitting there, everyone is in their own easy chair, and there are 8 speakers in your seat. 8 speakers. You are surrounded. And you're seeing state-of-the-art technology, and it's an immersive experience. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. And, you know, I kept going to these different performances and seeing how things were somehow being changed up. And I said, how does this work, and how can we somehow conceptualize it? And so what we came up with is a theory of cultural sustainability. And what I mean by that is, how does something keep going through a culture over decades, maybe a century? How is it that things survive? Whether it's a ballet production, a symphony, or a story. And I had to come up with what we call an exemplar. That's an example that kind of is ideal. It stands, and you can unpack it, and you can describe it and abstract it and build some kind of theory. So, as I was searching for that, I saw Wicked. And Wicked, I thought, yeah, there's something there. When it's so powerful and it's so successful. And I thought, maybe Wicked is worth talking about. Because if you talk about Wicked, you've got to talk about so much else, right? Because Wicked doesn't exist in isolation. And what we liken it to in the book is like a Jenga tower. You play Jenga, and you're trying to pull a piece out. And sometimes it's really easy to pull that piece out and examine it or put it off to the side. And other times it's really hard to, because it's connected to so much else. And that's how Wicked was. It was so difficult to just consider in isolation. So once we understood that, we had to go back into time and begin where it all began, which was with what? Okay, well, The Wizard of Oz, yeah. The movie, that's a starting point. That's in 1939, but you're shaking your head, no? All right. It really was the book. And the book was in 1900. So we had to go back to 1900 to see where it all began. Okay? And that's where it all began, in 1900. When L. Frank Baum wrote this book, and this is not the book cover, but it's a poster that's promoting the book. And so one of the things we found when we were writing this book is how little is new under the sun. That so much of what we think is brand new marketing has been going on for a really long time. So here's the poster, and you can recognize some of these characters. The goose that's in back there is Father Goose, because L. Frank Baum had written a book called Father Goose, His Book. So he was already known as a children's author. So what this poster is doing is kind of branding Baum and his work and preparing the audience for, yeah, this is this person you know, whose work you like, but here's a whole new cast of characters drawn by the same illustrator, Denslow, and preparing you for new adventures, a new extension. So this book came out in 1900, huge success immediately, and immediately Baum was thinking about translating into other media, into other experiences, okay? So this was happening about 120 years ago. And sure enough, it was a Broadway show, huge success, sold out across the country, lines around the block, theme parties based on it. It was extremely popular. Toured around the country for like 11 years in different guises. And he started writing more books, more shows, on and on. So, ideas about making it new, immersive experiences happening over 100 years ago. And in 1908, he produced what was called Fairy Logs and Radio Plays, which was a multimedia, again, immersive experience with state-of-the-art technology. State-of-the-art technology, where he was take this thing on the road with live music, essentially some motion pictures, state-of-the-art colored pictures, and making this world that he'd invented come alive. And the audiences loved it. Again, lines around the block, sold out. The trouble with this is when you have all that technology and you've got the live orchestra, what have you got? You have a lot of expense. And it almost bankrupted him. So he wasn't able to keep that new experience going. But it was a grand experiment. And it was a wonderful, again, immersive experience that kept the consumers coming back. And here are some of the artifacts. Oh, again, oh great. You can see what's coming next. Some of the artifacts from that era. So ticket stubs, the characters, and Baum was a huge celebrity of the day. And the characters. Here's the first map of Oz. Illustrations and actors who became famous playing these roles. So these are the kind of things that we came upon to build this theory of what we call cultural sustainability. Okay. Now, obviously, as time unfurls, new productions come along based on Oz. And in 1939, we had the film. So, in seeing The Wizard of Oz, now, no one's around who saw it in theaters originally, are they? My mother actually did. She's 93. We interviewed over 100 people for this book, and Mom was the oldest one, and she recalls in Tulsa going to see The Wizard of Oz. And again, the line was around the block. And in those days, you could get into the movie for $0.25 and spend the day there. And it was the only air-conditioned place in town. And in Tulsa, that meant a lot. And so there she was spending the day watching that movie. Now, as we know, it since came onto TV, and in the 50s and 60s, we watched it, right? How many people saw The Wizard of Oz in their homes? Raise your hand. Wow. Amazing. Okay. That is 100% market penetration, we call that. Everyone is watching The Wizard of Oz. And it came on once a year at varying times, you remember. What would you do when it came on? Was there a certain kind of set of things you did that were kind of the same? Do you remember? Anybody? Well? Exactly, the whole family did, right? Yeah, because you were gathered around usually one TV. Was it a color TV? See, no, probably it wasn't at first. Yeah, only a few people had color TVs in the early 60s, right? So sometimes you go over to a friend's house that had color. Because what happened? Why did you need a color TV? Yeah, when she landed in Oz, there it was, Technicolor. So yeah, the whole world opened up. Yeah, and so in our research, we found that so many people, they had a similar ritual. The family would gather around, the kids would get to stay up extra late, they'd be dressed in their PJs before the show started, so they'd go right to bed. And again, a kind of experience that's so memorable, you just don't forget it. And also what our interviews revealed when we talked to people is some things always stuck out about The Wizard of Oz. Obviously the music, it was so uplifting, a lot of it. Over the Rainbow, the most popular song, the most important song of the last 100 years that was voted on in a poll, that's how I know. And, but amazingly, what really comes through in those interviews is what? Yeah, thank you. Scared of the witch. Absolutely. Yeah, it's actually fear. A tremendous deep-seated terror of the Wicked Witch of the West. Okay? And that was imprinted, and we claim, like culturally imprinted on all of you. All right? All of you. It was really scary back then. Now today our kids look at The Wizard of Oz and I don't know. What's the effect? It's not the same. Because we have so many other things that scare us even more. Yeah. I mean, there's Jaws, there's Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw, I could go on. But nothing like the Wicked Witch of the West. Okay. Now, fast forward to 2003, and it was right about at this time that this happened. So yeah, something wicked this way comes. So Wicked, the Broadway show, debuts on Broadway in 2003. So it's a musical. A few of you have seen it. What's it about? Absolutely. It's about this wicked witch, that thing that we were the most afraid of our whole childhood. And suddenly make a musical about her. And how maybe she's not wicked. In fact, maybe she's been victimized. Maybe she's the good one after all. Maybe she's the one who's trying to do right. Who's trying to free the animals, to stand up for oppressed peoples, and stand up for herself, because she's been made fun of, because she's different, because she's green. Curses, yeah. And of course, she's been given these amazing songs to sing. So this classic song, Defying Gravity, that's a popular song now, right? We've all heard it. It's an anthem for self-identity, validation, and it's a showstopper. And in fact, that's the scene right there. That's the end of Act 1. So she steps on a platform. These guards are trying to break in. She has to decide if she's going to turn against the wizard or go along with him obediently. Her best friend, Glinda, the good witch, who really isn't so good after all, decides she just can't go with Glinda. She's going to stay and obey the wizard and grab all that power for herself. And Glinda, and Elphaba says, no, it's my time. It's my time to fly. So she steps on a platform, and what was just this basic black skirt suddenly unfurls. And she is hoisted up about 30 feet above the air. She's singing this song, she's belting it out, she's waving the broomstick, the lights are flashing, and the crowd is down below is saying, see, she's wicked after all. And we watch this transformation. And it's incredibly powerful. And the curtain comes down, and people just go, wow, wow. And once again, this immersive kind of experiences happen, right? Where we're just transported, we've forgotten where we are. We connect directly with that person who we thought was evil all our lives. And now she's this very admirable, heroic person. And that's quite a transformation. Now things happen then in the second act where we never achieve those emotional heights again in the same way. In fact, when the musical ends, it ends very quietly because that friendship is coming to an end between Glinda and Elphaba. They have to say goodbye to each other. Elphaba is exiled. Most people think she's dead. They think that she's been melted by Dorothy, but no, she really hasn't. She's going to live on. And Glinda is going to get to rule Oz. They've changed each other because of their friendship, and so they sing this song called For Good. And it's a play on words because they've had a lasting impact on each other that will last for good, but they've also improved each other's lives. They've changed each other's lives for the better, and so that too is for good. And that's when the sniffles come in. Okay, so we've got Wicked, and this thing keeps on going. By the way, how much money do you think Wicked has made so far? It's in its 15th anniversary. I give you a multiple choice. $1 billion, $3 billion, $5 billion. So it is $5 billion. Wicked has made $5 billion so far. And it's made it faster than any musical in history. So only two have made more. Can you guess what they are? the way you say that, cat. Well, Cats has done really well. It hasn't been quite that much. Good, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, Hamilton's on its way, but it's not there yet because it's so young. Just a couple years old. And it'll be really interesting to see how much money Hamilton makes. Close. But yeah, so Phantom is number one at 6.3 billion. But you've gotten this other thing. Yes, The Lion King at 6.1 billion. So it's a lot younger. And Wicked is younger still. So there we have it, the top three. So something's going on when things make this much money for this long a time, right? All right. How is Wicked kept going, and how do we keep promoting it? And I just want to give an example here. That maybe you're not on Broadway. Maybe you can't go see the show. But what can you do? Well, most of us, at least some of us, go to shopping malls still. Some of you are buying everything through Amazon. Come on. I know you like to shop. Well, if you do shop and you went to Cherry Creek Mall in 2015, you'd see a special exhibit called The World of Wicked. Okay, Wicked was coming to town, but in advance of that, the promoters set up a special exhibit. And there it is. That's taken from the second story of the Cherry Creek Mall in that big open space where we have lots of concerts and stuff. You've been there. And you can see it. And there it is. It's just this giant bubble that you can walk in, and you can see, artifacts from the show. They're the dresses. Beautiful. How often can you get up close to a Broadway, a dress, a costume? And these things cost thousands of dollars. That witch's dress, it weighs 40 pounds. So poor Idina Menzel, she had to sing Defying Gravity while she was like way down. And she fell off, she fell off the platform, you remember that. She got hurt. There's Glenda's dress. Yeah, beautiful dresses, so you can get up close to them. Again, immersing you. And it's guided, so there's someone there telling you about the show. Now here's a slide that didn't come out quite right, but off to the side, you can see what's going on. What you can do, and these little girls are doing it, once you've been through the bubble, you come out the other side, and there's some props. There's some things you can put on, like a boa, feathers, hats, maybe a cape, and then you can have your picture taken next to those two main characters, Glenda and Elphaba. And you're encouraged to post those photos, all right? Encouraged to post the photos. And so, right when they're taken, practically, the kids are on their phones saying, hey, look, out. It's on Instagram, Facebook, they're there. And that's a hallmark, too, of today's experiences. Whereas before, they were supposed to be very exclusive, very private, and we really didn't talk about them because you just kind of knew if you were VIP. Now, it's all about posting and about showing and telling everybody, and we depend on that. So there you are in the mall, having these experiences. And if everything works out right, and this sustainability takes place over 100 years, here are the kind of things that you have. And here are the relics and the fossils, in some cases, that we chronicle in our book. Okay? You'll recognize some. They go from left to right in chronological order. There's a promotional poster showing the main characters from the movie stepping out of the book, right? Okay. Down here, The Wiz in the 70s. Wow, that song, He's on Down the Road. And it was recently remade, live TV. Wicked, of course, on TV, Emerald City. All right, a lot of kind of a post-apocalyptic Oz. Yeah. That's a convention called OzCon. OzCon. Now you've heard of Comic-Con, but before those characters came along, there was OzCon. So we went to one of those conventions. It's people who are totally into The Wizard of Oz. It's unusual, I'll say that. These people are real fanatics. And there's an evening during the conference where they all get dressed up as their favorite characters. And there's kind of a competition, and they have a big banquet. And it's all very fanciful, and it's very imaginative, and it's very, very innocent. So it's wonderful to see. But those are the hardcore fans that are keeping this thing going. All right? Now, where's it going to end? I'm not really sure, but here's the next installment. Now, this is the poster that was just released of Wicked, the movie. So the movie's coming out in December of 2019. You can see there's the cast. We've got Leah Michelle. We've got Anna Kendrick. We have all these players. We have a scene here. Look how it's trying to draw you in. Look how these two women, and it says, "Look to the western sky." Promotional poster for the new movie. Does it look like something you'd like to see? Absolutely. It's going to draw you in. And they're going to make a lot of money. All right? And so it's going to keep going. There's the thing. Though we wonder what's going to happen to the show after that. All right. Now, here's the kicker. This is not the real poster. And the movie hasn't even been cast. And this is not real. And no one associated with the production made this poster. So who did make it? Thank you. A fan made it. A young girl made this poster. She loves Wicked. There's so much debate about who is going to be cast. So she put up her favorite cast. Using Adobe whatever, she designed a poster that looks professional to me. And she captures the elements that make the experience so live and so meaningful, right? The relationship, these powerful women. And that's the news about Wicked, that a show about two very strong-willed women plays very well, our research shows, not only with women, but men as well. They like seeing that. So this is her rendition of that. So now the fans play a huge role, as they always have, but now more than ever with the access to technology that they have, in continuing, sustaining this experience. So I don't know where it's going to end, but the story continues. And since I'm in marketing, I've got to say, buy this book. All right, thank you guys. Oh, yeah, honey.
In your montage of spin-offs or elements coming out of the Oz stories, I'm surprised you didn't include anything about the dark side of the rainbow.
The Dark Side of the Rainbow. That sounds interesting.
It was an actual movie that came out in 2000, but it's been played in the homes of people just as a do-it-yourself thing.
Ooh.
You do the 1939 movie, and when the you turn the sound completely off.
Okay.
Run the film. And when the MGM lion roars for the third time, you start The Dark Side of the Moon on CD.
All right.
Okay, now this sounds like something that would mostly be popular in Colorado and Oregon and places where you buy legal pot. But the synchronicity between the soundtrack provided by the Pink Floyd album and the film, which you see on the screen, is quite remarkable. You recall that the movie was black and white until a certain moment.
Yes.
When you're doing this, at that precise moment, the song that starts playing is Any Color You Like.
Wow.
And people are going, that's weird.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, that's very interesting. Has anyone else heard of that? You gotta try it. Oh, you have. Have you done it? All right. I didn't mean that. All right. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. That's great. John.
Question. What's happened to the working class characters from The Wizard of Oz? Because the woodsman, the tin man, they're all representative of parts of working America.
Yeah, they are. And for now, they've been forgotten. Okay? They've swept off to the side. Because you can only tell so much at one time. But see, I love his thinking. That represents an opportunity. I'd say, all right, the next iteration, let's feature them. What's happened to them? Let's bring them back. Okay? But maybe it's symbolic that they're not there anymore. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah?
Do you find when you have these new revivals, essentially, do they tend to bring people back to the classics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. And they actually do. So it's not a question of either or, it's that they pique our interest in, well, gosh, where did this come from? And so they revisit some of the source materials. So yeah, it actually lifts the whole thing up once again, especially those big touch points like the Wizard of Oz movie and some of the books. And even The Wiz, we saw a live revival of The Wiz on TV. So very much so.
Beethoven's coming back?
I think Beethoven's going to come back, but we got to find a way to make him new. Yes.
Are there other things in the works that are extensions of Gregory Maguire's other stories? The continuing story of the characters from Wicked?
Yeah, that also is a real question. We know that we have the film is happening, but beyond that, I don't know. And Gregory Maguire, as you point out, and this, of course, Wicked is based on his novel. And so we make a really interesting point that it depends on what you saw first as to what you like. If you read the book first and you're a big fan of the book Wicked and you see the show, chances are you're going to be disappointed, right? But vice versa, also true. If you see the show first and it's so emotional, so involving, and then you read the book, you're saying, what? Come on, that's not the same at all. So we have a whole chapter on that. But yeah, so it remains to be seen what is, and he's certainly done with that cycle of all his characters. So we'll see. And he made a lot of money off the Broadway show too. He did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.